Hello and welcome to the revisions to my Fire Emblem Three Houses tier list. Before we start, I would like to thank the people who have supported the channel on Patreon. It is incredibly appreciated. For more information on how you can do this and the benefits of doing so, a link is in the description. This tier list was originally done around 3 to 4 months ago, and since then a few of my opinions on the placements have changed, so I felt revisiting it and updating it to match my current views would be a good idea. The criteria for the list is as they were in the original, and are shown on screen now. This revision was originally streamed, and you can see the chat on the right hand side. The original stream is linked in the description, however this version trims out a lot of the downtime, and personally I think it makes for a much better viewing experience. Once my initial changes were done, I sat and talked with chat about some of the placings, went into more detail on some of them, and had a couple more changes made. I'll go more into this when we reach that part of the video, but for now I would just like to say a huge thank you to the people who participated. Chilling for an hour with 30 to 40 people talking about Fire Emblem was genuinely a lot of fun, and I really appreciate how civil everything stayed the entire time. As for now, let's crack on to the list. I'm going to start with the one that's bugged me since pretty much the day the tier list went up. The one that I really think needs changing. And that's Dorothea. Because there is no way she should have ever been this low. First of all, Dorothea behind these Silver Snow units is, ridiculous, to be honest. It should never have happened. Dorothea behind Manuela, again, similar thing. The points I made in the original tier list regarding Songstress, regarding Rally Charm, all still hold true, and those points alone should have put her at least probably here. Since then I have had one sort of big revelation, which is sword combat arts, magical sword combat arts. They're really good. There's a lot of merit to them, and there's something I never really gave a fair shot in the past. I've sort of clicked onto them a fair bit recently, and they are very effective in the right scenario. I don't want to go sort of into the full details of how to use magical sword combat arts and all of that stuff, but they definitely do bump my estimation of Dorothea up a bit to where she's at least going above Silver Snow Hubert and in-house Ingrid. So we're going to move her up to there, which I think is a fairer representation of where Dorothea should be. She should never have been here, that was egregious, but I think moving her above Silver Snow Hubert, in-house Ingrid, Manuela, and these Silver Snow units makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of these Silver Snow units, first of all, Cyril is the best of the three, and secondly, Catherine and Hilda, Catherine here being represented by Fleisch, are just way too high. They join on Chapter 12, and then neither of them are in particularly great spots. They're okay, but they're not in outstanding positions, so I'm going to be bumping them down to C tier. Probably around below Gilbert, maybe seems fair. I knew I wanted these to move down, but I didn't particularly think about where. They're perfectly serviceable units, but there's just not that much merit to putting them in. I think if putting these into your roster at that point in time is strengthening your team probably wasn't in too great of a spot in the first place. They're not bad by any means, but I think moving them down to C tier is a better representation of where they are in comparison to other units. Now, one unit that does need to be bumped up a little bit is Gilbert. He's not going massively up, but he's going to be nudged up a touch above Hanneman and out of House Ferdinand. He's a lot easier to use when you get him and to get him into a usable state than I sort of initially realised. He doesn't actually need investment to reach Paladin, and you can invest into him to make the certification more likely to hit. But if that's, entirely up to you. If you want to do that, then you can. If not, you can just certify him for Paladin, and you have an 8-move unit who comes with Smite, who can contribute pretty well. He's not a terrible combat unit. He's just a little bit better than my estimations, and I do prefer him slightly over Hanneman, and out of House Ferdinand is weird to rank, but I think he just deserves to go above him. I think that's just sort of a more accurate representation of where things are. This is a bit of a preemptive one, but I'm going to move down the units that are, well, at least Yuritsa and Edelgard to B tier. I think this just better represents the units who are only around for half of the game. Especially Yuritsa, who's actually very good, but only being around for 6 chapters is a pretty big roadblock. So we are going to bump him down just a smidge. He's still very good. Yeah, just the length of time he's available for just sort of holds him back on where he can actually be. I think it's still fair to keep Seteth up here. He joins on Chapter 11 similarly to... So he's around for sort of a similar point. He joins at a similar point. But he's just much easier to get use out of. Compared to Yuritsa, he's around for a lot more chapters. He has prevalence on Silver Snow 13, which is a challenging chapter, one where you really can appreciate him. You can get Swift Strikes on him very quickly. I think he still holds that slight edge over the other two, but I think it's fair to move these two down, just in relation to everyone else. Now, as Quinn said in the chat, Ingrid is another one who's actually gone up quite a fair bit, specifically out of House Ingrid. Ingrid is a unit I've looked at a lot in the past few months. She is a unit who I've sort of reassessed a fair bit and decided that I was just using her completely wrong, and I think a lot of other people are too. As a player phase unit with Battalion Desperation, Ingrid is really, really good. The issue with in-house Ingrid is she is literally sort of riding a knife's edge on whether or not she doubles and then whether or not she kills. Out of House Ingrid, gaining a couple of extra stat points in strength and speed just really, really helps her just solidify that. It just takes away a little bit of that doubt. And she is actually significantly better than her in-house counterpart, to the point where I'm going to put her here. Now, she is still a unit who struggles a little bit with reliability, but when she hits, she hits. She's really, really consistent and good when you can get her rolling. You just need to make sure her speed and her strength hit the benchmarks they need to. And Ingrid is actually an incredibly good unit. I'm still putting her bottom of A tier behind these other units, just because I think she still lacks that little bit of reliability. You don't have that guaranteed brave combat art or anything like that that can really sort of cement you from just being a victim to RNG in a way. But she is still a much higher performance unit than I gave her credit for. And if we're going to talk about units who are better than I gave them credit for, we have to address the elephant in the room, don't we? We can't just leave her sitting there, not talked about, when she's probably the most highly debated unit from the original tier list. We have to talk about Constance. Probably the unit which, considering I put Mercedes below Anna and Lysithea above Dimitri, something must have been off with my Constance placement, because it was definitely the most highly debated one. Moving her is weird, because I think a lot of the points raised about her are still iffy, but there definitely are aspects of her kit that I overlooked. I mentioned this with Dorothea, but sword combat arts take Constance to another level. They amplify her damage ceiling so far beyond what her spells give her that it just escalates her incredibly well, and really does just take her to an extreme, where a lot of those units who you have doubts about her killing are now just locked in with sword-based combat arts. The other really good thing about her is no one else really is clamoring for swords, so the resources she wants are very, very uncontested. She is pretty much free to get whatever she needs, and a lot of good swords come relatively early. You get the Devil Sword in Land of the Golden Deer. You get the Rapier in Oil and Water. Those are Chapter 7 and I want to say Chapter 8 paralogs. They're really, really early on. You can get very high damage weapons. You can use them with Soul Blade, Hexblade, to hit harder than her spells can ever provide. And the one that really gets me is Hexblade, which is the weaker of the two combat arts, with a Steel Sword Plus, which is a mid-game weapon at best, is stronger than any of her spells. And obviously she has a lot of room to go above and beyond that with things like Silver Sword Plus, some of the aforementioned weapons, Rapier, Devil Sword, the Sword of Zoltan, especially in Blue Lions when you get it quite early. You get a lot of tools to really amp up her damage that I wasn't really giving her credit for because I wasn't giving proper credit to those sword combat arts. So Constance is going up. You can get a Rapier in Chapter 2, I am not factoring in the Pagan Altar. That's another thing. I think I forgot to put that in the description, but I think this thing breaks every unit in the game. If we factor in the Pagan Altar, a lot of units reach S+ tier, because that thing gives you a lot of good things. But yeah, I don't tend to use it. I should have mentioned that earlier. I do apologise, thanks Lysithea. But the other aspect of Constance, which I kind of undervalued in this list as a whole, like, I gave it its credit verbally, but then I didn't necessarily rank it proportionately to how good it is Rescue. Pretty much the only unit who got their actual bump I think they deserve from it is Anna. Constance was ranked way too low in relation to her Rescue. Like, even without the sword combat art revelation that I had, she should have been higher because of Rescue alone. Now, I'm still not entirely sure where to put her, but I'm thinking here. That's about where I've been eyeing up. Obviously, this isn't my first time looking at this tier list and thinking, where do I want these units to go? I've moved around Constance a bit a few times, but I think around here is a much better representation of her. A few of you who frequent my streams will also know that my class opinion on Constance is a bit weird at the minute, but I think Constance has some very interesting, very strong class options, and there'll be a video coming about that soon. But yeah, she is a unit who I sort of slept on a couple of aspects on, and yeah, she led to her being a little bit underrated, quite a lot of bit underrated actually, if we're being fair. Sword combat arts really do just really amp up her damage ceiling to a point where her damage threshold is so much higher. One other thing I actually really slept on with Constance, and this is a weird thing to harp on now, but I want to bring it up, is a Thief certification. If you go for Sword Combat Arts, you're going to hit the requirements for this anyway, and it gives her like 12 stats. It's ridiculous. Thief certification on Constance is really good. It just increases her bulk a fair bit. But there is one other big change on here that I do want to make. And it's concerning the S tier, and specifically a unit who I think should be in it, who was a little bit slept on. And that's Dedue. I think Dedue needs to move up. He probably should have been here in the first place. I still have some slight issues with him. I think everyone has the little bit of availability issue with him, but it's not a big deal. The big thing with Dedue is Vengeance is incredibly good early. Vantage Wrath is incredibly good late. He gets both and can run both in the same build. On top of that, Bat Wrath protection tanking is so viable early on, it's ridiculous. Like, it's really insane how good it is, considering how little it's talked about. But you can get Battalion Wrath in Armor Knight for Chapter 5, and just steamroll everything. And you can still hit Vengeance for that point as well. Like, you have to invest into him to do that, obviously, but the payoff is incredible. And I think he just deserves to be here for how consistently good he is throughout the game. You can probably make cases that, like, his late game performance would put him around here, but, like, he's so good. He's so consistent. I still think Bernie does outshine him from sort of, like, Chapter 4 onwards because of Pegasus Knight. Or, sorry, Chapter 5 onwards because of Pegasus Knight. But Dedue has his own advantages too. And Pegasus Knight alone shouldn't put a tier gap between Bernie and Dedue, I don't think. Like, Dedue does have his own advantages, like I said. And it's just probably a fairer reflection of their placement if Dedue is in that S tier alongside them. Now, it is worth mentioning that does mean he leapfrogs Shamir, so that should probably just be clarified. Shamir still misses too many chapters to be S tier for me. Performance-wise, she's comparable to Dedue. She's incredibly good from when you get her, and consistently performs very well throughout the game, above the level of other snipers. She just misses too many chapters, I'm afraid. Missing, is it 7 or 8, is just a little bit too extreme. So I think Dedue going above her to make that leap into S tier is perfectly fair. So that's the end of the initial changes I had planned, sort of. There is one that I missed, but it gets picked up later. So from here, we sort of just had an open discussion about some of the placings, etc., and due to the nature of the stream, these conversations bounced around quite a bit, and on a rewatch could be a little hard to follow. As a result, I've taken them and put them into a more coherent discussion for each topic. One issue with this is that the tier list would have bounced around a bit with its placings a little, because these took place over quite a period of time. So to counteract this, I have replaced the live feed of the tier list with a static image that reflects what you should be seeing at that moment. This does mean the changes may be a little abrupt, but I think it's all worked out for the better. Anyway, let's get into it. How many flyers would be ideal for a maddening run? I'm concerned about good gambits. It depends what other units you're using and what gambits you have access to. I'd say I normally end up with about 4 or 5 if I don't limit myself. But honestly, it depends on your route as well, because like in Azure Moon, you can afford to like go Paladin or Bow Knight on a lot more units without as much drawback. But yeah, I'd say I normally end up with about 4 or 5. I don't think you're ever going to go much higher than that anyway, because I don't think you need that many combat units. The rest of your squad will probably be like primarily utility, or you'll have just like dedicated snipers, grapplers, etc. But yeah, I'd say that's about fair. So Yuri's early game is absolutely nuts. Is it base 11 strength with his personal giving him +3 is just really, really solid. You can actually, if you give him a rally strength, you can get him consistently one-shotting, like, the massive bulk of the Chapter 2 enemies. So yeah, Yuri is just incredibly good early on. Bernadetta and Claude are better than both the Byleths. Claude probably should be above male Byleth, I will take that one. I still think female Byleth is just so valuable early on with Peg Knight that I think Bernie might outperform. Chapter 1 Curve Shot's really nice. Chapter 2 Tempest Lance with minimal effort. The thing with Bernie that makes her so good is she literally, like, stumbles into everything she would want, apart from maybe Pass. And if you go Bow Knight, she stumbles into that too. I could actually see Bernie above Female Byleth. These two are incredibly close. I could see that. Bernie is so good early on. Yeah, I think I would be easily putting Bernadetta here if I wasn't, like, kind of iffy on her enemy phase builds, but her enemy phase are really good. At some point, I just have to face facts that, like, Vantage Batwrath is actually really good. I just don't like playing around it, and that's fine that I don't enjoy using it, but it's still really good. I can't just discount it because I don't like it. Yeah, Vantage Batwrath is really good. I don't like it because cycling battalions really annoys me. But I can't keep pretending it's bad because I don't like using it. Like, I've been shown the light. It is really good. I still prefer using Batwrath to just get regular Wrath, but that isn't better. And that distinction has to be made. It's something I prefer. I find it a much more enjoyable way to play the game, but just because I enjoy it more, it doesn't make it better. And yeah, Vantage Batwrath is very good. What do you mean by you only need 2, Rui? You don't need any, but they're really good. You want as many as you can fit in your team, really. That is the best class in that point of time, for sure. I mean, Battalions is fair, but you still want Peg Knights. And also, like, who you want Peg Knight on which map will probably change. Because it's not like, when you're intermediate classes, it's not like you're keeping one unit in a class for the entire time. You're cycling your units as you need them per map. I think Dedue is less valuable than you would think since he's locked to a route with a better carry and you only really need one boss killer on most maps. Potentially controversial statement, Dedue is both a better boss killer and at points in the game a better carry overall than Dimitri. Dedue has a significantly better early game than Dimitri does. Like, Dimitri early he's not bad by any means, but he's nothing special, whereas Dedue is an absolute monster. I disagree that you want to be giving stat boosters to Dimitri. He's perfectly fine without them. Dimitri doesn't really need, like, maybe like Dex and Luck stat boosters to boost his crit and hit rates, but why is Flane in D? That, or, well, did I say C? Okay, whatever. Why is Flane in D is currently the best question ever. I meant to move Flane up, I'm not going to lie. You know when I was talking about undervaluing Rescue, and I said I only valued it properly on Anna, I meant to go into Flane, and I forgot. So, yeah, Flane should go up. Flane is probably around where Manuela is. Probably slightly higher because she reaches Darkflyer a lot easier, and can make really good use of Rescue. But, yeah, I forgot to talk about Flame. Flame was meant to move up this entire time. What's my opinion on the Hunter's Volley Magic Bow Hanneman? Hunter's Volley Magic Bow is okay. I think it's very cost-intensive for what it actually gives you. That being said, I haven't played around with it too much. I know you can use it on, like, Hanneman, maybe, like, Mercedes, maybe, like, Hubert as well. But I can't claim to be, like, super familiar with it, but I've never got that great a performance out of it when I did it. Why is Constance better than Dorothea? So a massive part of it is she has an insane magic stat. So she has a 60% magic growth, but that's really deceiving. When you actually look at her true growth, because all students are guaranteed to gain 2 stats on every level up. So when you look at her true growth, because her other stats are so low, her magic is actually inflated to be around a 77% growth. So over 3/4 of her levels, she's gaining magic, which is really incredible. She also has Rescue. That's the other really big thing. She gets Rescue. Alois is much closer to actually, like, really strong late game builds like Grappler. Oh, I will address one thing that a couple of people brought up in the comments, and I'm not sure if it's something I've personally explained poorly or something like that, but, like, I'm trying to phrase this as best as I can. The amount of units between 2 units has absolutely no effect on the gap between 2 units. The thing that indicates a big gap is a tier. Sometimes there's a bit of a misconception where, like, if there's a lot of units between 2 units, those 2 units must have a huge gap between them. It can just be there's a lot of units in that very small gap. So yeah, that is something I just sort of want to clear up, I guess, because I think it's something that a couple of people got a bit confused by in the original video. Hot take, Annette should at least be S. I agree, it's a hot take. So, Annette's rallies are incredibly valuable. There's a couple of problems with them. First of all, it leaves her trailing behind to rally every turn. Because the rallies got nerfed from past games and don't give XP anymore. Secondly, they're almost reliant on another unit as well. And thirdly, they're just not... like, the benefit from rallies is really good, but it's costing you a unit's move. And when you get further into the game, that +4 strength could have instead been a Swift Strikes, or a Hunter's Volley, or, you know, a Bolting, or something like that. And I just think there's a point around chapter, like, 9, 10, where rallies don't necessarily fall off in what they provide, but they fall off in terms of, like, their opportunity cost, what they could be providing instead. Hot take, Annette's best class is Cavalier. That's actually, like, I don't agree it's her best class, but Cavalier Annette is actually really viable. What's the best endgame class for Marianne? It depends what you want your Marianne to do. I don't really think she offers that much as a mage. I think it's Falconite, but, like, yeah, it depends what you want your Marianne to do, and also what you've got available. Yeah, I personally think it's Falconite, and you just run around frozen lancing things. Marianne does make one of the best choices for Dancer, I agree, but I think, like, if we were factoring Dancer into this tier list, like, every unit would be, like, SRS+. Like, if we made a Dancer tier list, every unit would be in the same tier. Like, the performance difference between Dancers is incredibly minimal. We have moved Gilbert up a little. He's fine, but, like, being a solid, good unit, like, he might be above Lawrence, I could see that. Like, if Lawrence would be, like, here if he had Budding Talent Frozen Lance. It's really annoying. I don't think Gilbert is here. I'm gonna be honest. I think I can probably put him above Lawrence, and that's probably more... Lawrence's early game is so weird. You're never investing in Lawrence early because he doesn't have enough to make you invest into him over other units. Yeah, like, I agree, like, Gilbert's definitely, like, got merit to him, but, like, I just don't think his merit is that high. Like, he can go Paladin and hit things, he can, like, Smite is really valuable, but that's about all he's bringing to the table. Gilbert joins when Dedue isn't available, though. That is true, but the thing is, this is 3 houses. You don't need to be using units to train them up. Like, you have adjutants and you have natural tutoring. You will probably have units ready to fill in Dedue's spot anyway. Maybe that's just me. You also can recruit units, like, pre-trained, like, on Chapter 11. So if you're really worried about that Dedue leaving, I'm pretty sure you can get better options than Gilbert. If this was, like, an older Fire Emblem, like, let's say this is, like, FE9 or something, and, like, when a unit left, Gilbert came in, that would be a lot more valuable, because it's a lot... Well, I guess FE9 was a really poor example, because you have bonus EXP. Let's say it's FE7, and a unit leaves and Gilbert comes in. That would be incredibly valuable, because your other units would be lagging behind. But in this game, that isn't really the case. You do also get Seteth when Dedue leaves. That is true. I'm going to go with Sue. Makes a good point there. Sorry if I got that wrong. I tried. Alois is just a bit better than Gilbert IMO, just because of Axe and Gauntlet ranks. Make him a War Master much easier. Can also try Fortress Knight exam if he wants from base. I think the gap between Alois and Gilbert is fairly substantial, because you can literally just go for Grappler. I'm pretty sure when you get Alois, you can just go for Grappler. And then once you've mastered that, you have a player phase killing machine. Like, he doesn't really need any help from that point onwards. And while you can just go Paladin with Gilbert, Gilbert doesn't have anything to really make his Paladin as good as a Fierce Iron Fisting Grappler. He's a rank away and needs masteries? Is he a rank away? Doesn't he come with B gauntlets? Can you try for advanced classes with B? Maybe you need B+. Maybe you need to push him up to B+. I disagree, Mercedes should be higher. Anna has Rescue. Mercedes has nothing that's even comparable. Nothing Mercedes brings to the table is as good as Rescue. Okay, what Rui just said, I am incredibly close to that opinion. Like, I am really, really close to this. Because I just don't think Mercedes actually contributes. I struggle to get contributions out of Mercedes so much. Early Physic does hold value. I mean, she doesn't even get early Physic, but, you know, early game Physic, like Chapter 3 Physic, is still valuable, but, like, it's barely. I think Caspar is better than SS Hilda. Honestly, like, I can see this. Full disclosure, I am, like, there's a few units on here that I'm not overly that familiar with. But the Silver Snow Hilda and Silver Snow Catherine are definitely probably the bottom ones on here. SS Edelgard is still arguably the best unit for half of the game. See, that's the thing. SS Edelgard is still really good in the first half of the game, but I think, like, sort of, especially, like, Constance and Ingrid moving up here sort of raised the bar of this tier a bit, to where I think missing half the game is, a bit more punishing than it was previously. Although Seteth also misses half the game, but he also gets Swift Strikes and is literally pretty much investment free. He needs to get Swift Strikes, that's about it. What's the best class for Dedue to take advantage of Vengeance? You can either go War Master to use, like, Vengeance with an enemy phase build, or you can go Wyvern Rider, which I personally prefer. I really like Wyvern Rider Dedue. I think it's really good. But it also depends how much you sort of have to be able to give him if you don't have flying battalions going and things like that. Annette is where she is because of her her rally supports, which are still incredibly valuable. She also has the A Authority boon, which makes her like just a really natural fit for Dance of the Goddess. There's not really that many units who are reaching A Authority in time for Chapter 14, and the other ones who do probably have better things to be doing than Dance of the Goddessing. Which is a double-edged sword. Obviously, it means that Annette doesn't have that much to be doing, but, like, yeah, she is probably your best .G candidate. The thing is, like, right, Dedue, I don't technically count Dedue as missing Chapter 13, because, like, every unit apart from the House Leaders and Byleth missed some part of Chapter 13. Like, obviously not showing up for it at all is bad, but it's not terrible. Missing Chapter 14 sucks. Missing Chapter 15 doesn't really matter. That map's a cakewalk. You'd still rather he be available for it, but missing Chapter 14 is, yeah. If it was Chapter 13, it'd probably spawn next to Ash. It's hard to say. I mean, we can make that assumption, but it's hard to say where he would spawn. Blue Lion's Annette is definitely better. There is potentially an argument for splitting a couple more units off. So, like, Lysithea is the big one I've considered splitting, because out of House Lysithea, if you don't rig the recruitment, which I'm going to be transparent here, rigging recruitments in my mind counts as an exploit, so isn't factored into this. I don't mind if you do it, that's completely fine, but assuming you don't rig the recruitment, out of House Lysithea performs a fair bit worse. Not necessarily because she actually technically performs worse, but because you have to invest a lot more into her to actually recruit her. Like, you have to commit quite a lot early to get her in time for when you want her. Hapi is not on par with Linhardt. I think she's significantly better before they get warp. Then Linhardt has like a 1 warp gap, or a 1 chapter gap, where he's like better than Hapi. And then Hapi's better again once she gets warp. She just has much more she can do. Linhardt is basically a physic bot before he gets warp, and like he has a bit of chip damage. He has very accurate chip damage, admittedly, but it's still just chip damage, whereas Hapi's running around with like Banshee. And also has physic. She's actually really viable early on. Lawrence is like, the thing is that like, 3 houses tier lists are weird because like, even these units down here are more than capable of like shining in a run. Frozen Lance just requires a bit more sort of investment than it necessarily feels like it's worth at C+. I don't think it helps that we see what units do with Frozen Lance before he gets it, to be fair. And then in the late game, he just doesn't really have much. Like, Frozen Lance is still good, but it's not Vengeance, Swift Strikes, Point Blank Volley. It's like some weird mid-tier where like you still appreciate having it, but it's not an end-game skill necessarily. A couple of units can push it there, notably Marianne, but yeah. If Lawrence could go Falconite, he might be a fair bit better, but he can't. I think there is a tendency for some people to, like, almost discount Lawrence because of Lysithea. I don't think that's entirely inaccurate, but I think Lawrence has his own flaws as well. He's caught in some weird hybrid between physical and magical unit, and then he's a boy when he could really do with being a girl. Why is Yuri ranked so high? So I'll just go over this one quickly because we have touched on it before, but his early game is absolutely insane. He has incredible damage output early on because he has 11 base strength, his personal ability gives him an additional 3, and unlike a unit like, say, Felix, who is able to get to 15 strength, Yuri can still use a battalion, so he can use the Geralt Mercenaries, for example. He also has an authority boon, which is extremely beneficial. He gets some good combat arts later on. He gets Break Shot really early, actually. He gets Wind Sweep pretty early on. So he has a lot of really valuable things. He's just a very consistent performer throughout the playthrough, and then he can very easily just slot into Sniper, kind of similarly to Ignatz, actually. These two units, Ignatz and Yuri, are incredibly similar, and honestly doing all that is fine. It depends what you value higher. I really like Yuri's early game damage output, like his Chapter 2 damage output. Heal utility on the first couple of maps is also quite nice. He does get Deadeye, that was a misspeak by me, a slip of the tongue. I feel Catherine in between Petra and Hilda is a bit weird. I think Catherine's early game, like, really nicely splits Petra and Hilda. I think Hilda's early is perhaps a little overrated. Like, it's not bad by any means, it's actually good, but, like, I don't think it's as good as some of the other units in that list. Whereas I think Petra's really viable, like, early on. I also think Petra's early might be a little bit underrated, but then... Like, then again, like, it's hard for me to say that because Petra is, like, pretty much my favorite unit in the game. So I've put so much work into fine-tuning her early game because I like using her. Whereas I haven't put that same effort into figuring out, like, the specific exact best tutoring order for Hilda. So, for me, that's absolutely true, but there may be something I'm missing with Hilda. So, I'm not sure. Yeah, Hilda is definitely, like, good early. Like, I don't want to make it out like Hilda's somehow this bad early game unit. She's still good. I just think, like, there are definitely better early game units, and I think Petra is one of them. The issue with Shamir S for me is she just misses too many chapters. Like, Shamir misses, like, 8 chapters throughout the course of a game. 7 if you're in Crimson Flower, and for me, that's just too many. The one that jumps off my screen is Felix belonging with other units in A+. Felix is incredibly close to A+. I want to do it because he's, like, a top 2 unit, like, one of my top 2 favorite characters in the game. Like, I just don't think he is. Like, I think a lot of what Felix gets is sort of bolstered by other units. Like, he gets 2 might supports. He's pretty much the prime candidate for Annette rallies. Things like that. But I just think he's, like, after about chapter, like, 10? 8? 9? Around that point, I'd probably say around chapter 8 when your other units start hitting A ranks. He really just, like, he doesn't keep up. He catches back up when he goes Grappler, but, like, everyone can catch back up by going Grappler. He gets there very easily, admittedly, but he... Or Sniper, actually. Like, both of them are incredibly viable, but... What, Maliath said? I agree with. I think Felix and Yuri are incredibly close. Honestly, I expected more people to bring up the Lysithea point, so I was kind of waiting for it, but, like... I can't think of any other Fire Emblem where there is a unit who, between chapters 5 and 10, can warp once per map, and then from chapter 10 onwards can warp twice per map, and they aren't considered, like, a definitive one of the top X units in the game, like, blowing everything else out of the water. Like, I can't think of another Fire Emblem where that's the case. Yeah, like, look at Lena or Safi or Silk. I'll address this one since it got brought up a couple of times. The gap between Lysithea and the other Warpers, I guess I'll address this. So it's not just a time thing, it's also an investment thing. If you actually look at how much Faith XP Lysithea needs next to Hapi and Linhardt, before we even factor in Mastermind, the difference is insane. It's substantial. I think Lysithea needs less than half the Faith XP of Linhardt and Hapi. So that wraps everything up. Thank you again to the people who participated in the live conversation. I would also like to once again thank the people who have backed the channel on Patreon. The support means so much and I really do appreciate it. If you would like to discuss this video, other stuff on the channel, or Fire Emblem in general, the Discord is a great place to do so, a link to which is in the description below. Thank you very much for watching.